Ladies and gentlemen, on today's episode, I try to build my dream 5-rod and reel arsenal with a pretty hefty budget of $3,000. So with that $3,000, that means we have to be able to purchase 5 rods and 5 reels, which gives us about an average of $299 each, which is going to be a whole lot of fun to try and put this together. We also have a quick update on an Elite Series angler battling a scary situation, another legend of the sport retires, and we tackle choosing the right kayak length. All that and more in this episode of Tackle Talk.
Hello, everybody. I'm Bill Dance, and you're listening to Tackle Talk.
This is the Tackle Talk Podcast, brought to you by American Legacy Fishing and Outdoors. World-class fishing gear, unmatched personal service. Now, here's your host, Andrew Hayes.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another jam-packed episode of the Tackle Talk Podcast. We're going to try and cram a ton into today's episode here, but before we do, we have to give a big thank you to the folks that make it possible for you to hear my voice reach your ears every single week, American Legacy Fishing. And today, we're going to talk about a lot of gear, much of which you can purchase from American Legacy Fishing if you want at a discount. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But besides that, they've got some killer sales going on right now that you guys should know about. First, they're dropping a deal today in coordination with this episode for 30% off all Costa sunglasses while supplies last. So that is like a third off, arguably the most popular high-quality sunglasses around. They're usually pretty expensive, but 30% off makes a huge difference and now might put those glasses in a lot of people's price range. So if you've ever wanted a true pair of Costas, but you couldn't spend the money, right now might be your chance. They also have 25% off all Dobbins rods, a very popular deal. They brought it back for this week, which might come in handy here in a little bit when we talk about some of these 5 rods that we'll put together, but a great deal there, 25% off Dobbins. They also have a mind-boggling 50% off all Berkeley. Yes, half off. This is not some buy one, get one half off deal, a true half off sale on Berkeley fishing gear. That means Max Scent, Choppos, Swamp Lords, crankbaits, cane walkers, you name it, 50% off over at AmericanLegacyFishing.com, and they're offering you an extra 20% off all used gear on the website right now. There are some amazing deals to be had over there at AmericanLegacyFishing.com, and be sure to use code TackleTalk5 for an extra 5% off. If you like fishing, if you like saving money, if you like supporting great small businesses, there is no reason not to check out American Legacy Fishing right now. So go check them out, AmericanLegacyFishing.com, and use code TackleTalk5. Okay, everybody, the first thing we have up here on the docket today, we've got a few pieces of news from the pro fishing world. First is that an absolute legend of the sport, Shaw Grigsby, announced his retirement from professional fishing after spending over 4 decades as a staple of the bass fishing world. So, Brent Frazee from Wired to Fish reports Bass Hall of Famer Shaw Grigsby announces retirement after 41 years. Known as one of the best sight fishermen on the pro circuits, he amassed 9 wins and 64 top 10 finishes in tournaments on the BASS, FLW, and Major League Fishing circuits. He was a consistent contender in just about every tournament he entered, and his humble, outgoing personality earned him a huge following. But he decided in July that it was time to walk away. Following the last Major League Fishing Tackle Warehouse tournament in 2025, which ran from July 25th through July 27th, he retired as a full-time pro. I expected to just go out quietly, but the response has been overwhelming, Grigsby told Wired to Fish. I can't believe the number of emails, phone calls, and messages I've gotten since I announced that I would be retiring. It's truly touching. But Grigsby is convinced that he made the right decision. 41 years of life as a full-time pro is enough, he said. While he still plans to fish a tournament or two here and there, his days of fishing a circuit's complete schedule are over. Doing this full-time takes its toll, both physically and mentally, he said. It takes Grigsby a while to relate everything on his medical chart. He's had a triple bypass heart surgery, 2 back operations, a hip replacement, and knee and shoulder surgeries. That amounts to a lot of new parts. Mentally, a long career has also taken its toll. I can tell that I'm not as sharp in my decision making as I once was, he said. It's hard to adjust mentally to not doing as well as you once did, but I have no complaints. I consider myself lucky to have made a career out of doing something I love. He plans to continue fishing, albeit at a much more leisurely pace, and represent his longtime sponsors. Meanwhile, he uses his fishing tackle to cast for a much bigger game alligators. He works as a nuisance alligator removal specialist, replying to calls about reptiles that are harassing pets in swimming pools and or backyards. He lures the alligators to the boat with his fishing tackle, then fellow workers use a PVC pipe to extend a lasso to loop the beast's snout, and the fight is on. Once the alligator is subdued, its mouth is taped shut and it is transported to either an alligator farm or a wildlife sanctuary. The biggest benefit of retirement is getting to spend more time with family, Grigsby said. He looks forward to being around for his wife Polly, their children Amy and Shaw, and his grandchildren. So there you go. A massive congratulations to Shaw Grigsby on an incredible career. He's inspired a lot of anglers not only to fish, but to do it the right way. Integrity, humility, general likableness, and approachability, all those qualities that you want in a true role model. Shaw has all of those. But on top of that, he had the bass fishing chops to compete at the highest level and win. You heard in that article he had 9 wins and a whopping 64 top 10s to his name across bass, FLW, and MLF. And it's always a little bittersweet when you have to say goodbye to one of the legends, but we also should just be thankful that we are fans of a sport where a 40-plus career is even possible to begin with. We get to watch our favorite anglers longer than almost any other sport gets to watch their superstars, hands down. If you watch like basketball, baseball, football, you're looking at anywhere from like a 5 to maybe 20-year career if you're lucky. Like LeBron James, who has been about as healthy and as freak of an athlete as you can be in terms of like longevity of his career and avoiding injuries. He's been in the NBA for 22 years. Shaw was a pro angler for 41, so almost double that. So a tip of the hat to one of the greats of the sport, Shaw Grigsby. Enjoy retirement, and we wish you nothing but the best. Okay, next up here on another serious note, we want to extend our thoughts and prayers out to a past guest and a friend of the show, Elite Series angler Kyle Patrick, who's been battling a pretty big health scare the past few weeks. So the article from Such over at Bassmaster.com says, an enlarged heart caused by a tick bite has ended Kyle Patrick's second year on the Progressive Bassmaster Elite Series. After a hospital stay, the 28-year-old is pretty much on lockdown at his home in Cooperstown, New York, recuperating from a potentially deadly illness that increased his heart size by 1/3. It sucks, he said, but I'm just happy I'm not dead. After a 5-day stint in the hospital, Patrick was released last week wearing a defibrillator vest, a device for patients at risk of sudden cardiac arrest. He's been told by doctors not to exert himself in any way, which ends fishing for a while for him. Not officially, but yeah, fishing is done, he said. It's because there really is a high possibility of permanent heart damage or death. Basically, my heart got so big that it's going to take a while for the swelling to go down. In that time, I can't increase my heart rate at all. You can't do anything. I literally can't do anything for 3 months, he said. Patrick, who stands 23rd in the Progressive Bassmaster Angler of the Year standings, is disappointed his bid for a 3rd consecutive Bass Pro Shops Bassmaster Classic will end. The week before ICAST, Patrick experienced flu-like symptoms with aches, chills, and a 103-degree temperature. Tests showed anaplasmosis, a bacterial illness spread by ticks. Although he regularly checks for ticks, Patrick said he never saw one on him, nor a bite. Antibiotic treatment for his anaplasmosis had Patrick feeling 10 times better, well enough to fish local derbies on the weekend. After a long run on Sunday, he started feeling badly again and advised his partner he might need medical assistance. Patrick made it through the day, but at 3 a.m. Monday, he woke up from a deep sleep with excruciating chest pain. He drove himself to the hospital where he was diagnosed with ventricular tachycardia, or VT, an irregular heartbeat caused by swelling. His levels of tryptophan, an amino acid the heart releases, were off the charts. VT causes irregular heartbeat called an arrhythmia. That's why he was sent home with a defibrillator strapped around his chest. Patrick has consulted with numerous doctors, even family friends who went through something similar. All said rest is required for his heart to return to normal size. Your health is first and foremost. I'm not upset. I'm at peace with it. Okay, so a very strong sophomore year for Elite Series angler Kyle Patrick ends early as he has to withdraw from the remainder of the season because of this. So I texted Kyle about a week ago to check in. He said he's doing well, but you can tell that he's frustrated because he can't get out there and fish or finish the season out or secure his spot in the Classic for next year. It's tough because what he said basically is like, you feel fine now because he's on the other end of it. The pain is gone, but the people that are way smarter than you and I are sitting there and saying, hey, you need to stay inside, you need to rest. If you don't rest, bad things can happen, like very, very bad things can happen. And that is tough, I'm sure, because you just want to get back out there doing what you want to do, especially when you start feeling well, but everyone else is saying, hey, this is super serious. You have to take it easy for a little bit. So we're glad that he's heading in the right direction. This could have been way, way worse if he had not gotten the medical attention that he needed at the time that he got it. So we're glad that Kyle is on the mend, and I'm sure that this will motivate him to come out swinging in 2026. If you can, keep Kyle in your thoughts this week, as I know that he would appreciate it. Okay, everybody, enough seriousness here. Let's have some fun today. Today, I'm going to take an idea that actually came up in one of our American Legacy Fishing Show episodes, which you should all go listen to, by the way, if you haven't already. It's a monthly show that Brian, the vice president of American Legacy Fishing, and I do. It's the first Thursday of every single month. We've done like 6 or 7 episodes so far, but one of the topics from that episode was to build your dream rod and reel arsenal under a certain budget number. And I think the budget number that the person that wrote in gave us at that point was pretty small in the grand scheme of things. I think it was like $1,500 to build a whole rod and reel arsenal. And that was a fun exercise because it's much harder than you think to build 5 or 6 full combos under that budgetary constraint nowadays. Like the $99-ish rods and reels are going by the wayside so fast that your budgets just have to increase. And so that was kind of fun to try and do that in that $1,500 range. Very doable, but your choices are just more limited than I would like them to be because that really entry-level price range is so tough nowadays. So today, I wanted to do an episode where I did sort of that same exercise, but with a little healthier budget of $3,000. So I'm going to build my dream 5 rod and reel arsenal with a total budget of $3,000. Now, that's going to give me $600 per combo, $300 per reel, $300 per rod. And that opens the door to play around with this a lot and get creative and maybe save money on certain combos and then use those to build some more high-end combos in this 5 rod and reel setup. So I know that this isn't like in everybody's budget, but just as a fun exercise to say, hey, if I had $3,000, and look, some people are going to say $3,000 is a crazy number. Some people are going to say, hey, that's still going to be pretty tough at $3,000 because a lot of the high-end reels nowadays are, $300, $400, $500. Rods are getting up there in the $300, $400 range nowadays. So this might be a little tougher than you think, but I think it's going to be really fun because you're going to get some really high quality combos out of this build while still being hopefully somewhat attainable to some of you that are listening. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to build the 5 rods from our original episode like 6 years ago called The Only 5 Rods You Need, which I still stand by the way. If you're building out your own first arsenal, those 5 rods are a great place to start. And I probably do 95% of my fishing around here with those 5 setups. So I really think you can do almost anything in the country with those 5 combos. Go listen to that episode if you haven't already, but those are the 5 combos that I'm going to use to build out today's arsenal. So let's get to it. The first combo that I'm going to build here is going to be our all-around versatile casting rod. Now, this puppy has to be able to do everything in a pinch. Jigs, Texas rigs, bottom baits primarily, but you're also still going to want to be able to throw moving baits like chatter baits, spinner baits, buzz baits. It should sort of be a jack of all trades, even though normally I'm using it for more of your, kind of light pitching jigs and Texas rigs and dragging and stuff like that. And for this combo, I think I'm going to surprise a couple of you here. I'm going to pick a full Daiwa combo for this. And this is going to be, I believe, my second most expensive combo of this whole list. And it is going to be a Daiwa Zillion SV in an 8.5-to-1 gear ratio with a matching Daiwa Zillion rod. The model number is going to be ZLON 731 MHFB, which is their multi-purpose model. That's what it's like labeled, but it's a 7'3" medium heavy fast, and it's rated for a 1/4 ounce to 1 ounce baits. Now, that combo is one that I have. I've been playing around with it for about 6 months, and it is disgusting. And it should be for what it costs. So I guess that's the other part of this. But I slept on Zillions for far too long. If you have the money, and I know that is a big if out there because I definitely don't have the money to buy this combo over and over again, but if you have the money to splurge splurge a little bit, especially the Zillion reel, but the rod too. They are both extremely nice. So the rod has that SVF Nano Plus blank. It's really light, probably the most sensitive Daiwa rod that I've ever used to date. It's got that X45, whatever it is, the 45-degree wrapping on the blank on the inside, 70-degree Fuji K guides. It's got a cork handle, that carbon MQ butt section, air sensor seat, just a really crisp, sensitive, light rod that I'm really enjoying using out there. Now, it's a little too high end for me to be buying all the time, but for one rod that you might want to treat yourself on a setup, and this is your all-around casting rod, so it's probably going to be your most used rod, the most versatile rod you're going to have in your lineup, this might make sense to splurge on a little bit. I can kind of justify that in my mind. Same with the reel. You're getting hyperdrive in that Zillion reel. You're getting the lightweight aluminum body, updated. I think it's like a 2-stage SV booster braking system in there. It's got the T-wing, obviously. Just like the really high-end sports car version of a Tatula is what I think of when I see this reel. Together, they make a really fun combo, but it's going to cost us. It's at a big price. The combo is going to eat away at $798 of our $3,000 budget. So that is $200 more than I should spend per setup if I want to keep everything even in here. So we're going to have to make that up in other places, but that's the first combo here. The Daiwa Zillion SV with the Daiwa Zillion 7.3 medium heavy fast for our all-around versatile combo. Okay, next up here, we're going to go to our frogging setup. Now, this is what I always affectionately refer to as my meat stick or my whoopin' stick, but this is your heavy-duty, beefy, powerful combo for frogs, for heavy flipping, for punching, but it can also double as a big swim bait rod or an A-rig rod if you set it up correctly. So for this, we're going to claw back a little bit of the money that we spent on that Zillion, and we're going to go with a new 2025 Daiwa Tatula 150 casting reel because it's got the specs that I want at a price that's fairly affordable, and it allows us to build this combo to potentially save a little money here, and then I can use that money elsewhere. So $199 for that reel. You're getting 7+1 bearings. You're going to get the 8-to-1. Make sure you get the 8-to-1 if you're going to use this for your frogging setup. It picks up 37.3 inches per turn, which is great. Very fast because you want to pick up a ton of line quickly, no slack. That's what you want in your frog reel. It's faster than something like the Tatula X, so the step down that would be, I think, about $150. Their 8-to-1 and the Tatula X only picks up like 33 inches per turn. This picks up over 37. So you're getting a faster reel, even though they're both 8-to-1s. I like that in my casting reel. If you're picking up almost 4 inches more per turn of the handle, that's going to make a difference. It's also 7.9 ounces, I think, and it has the capacity and the brute strength to handle heavy-duty frogging. So that's our reel at $199. And then for our rod, we're also going to save some money here. We're going to go with our trusty Dobyns Fury 735C. This is my classic, if it ain't broke, don't fix it rod in my lineup. I've had this same rod that I've frogged with for over 6 years now, the exact same rod. I've never broken it. I've never had any issues. I've really come to love this thing. I'm going to be heartbroken someday if I ever do break this rod because we've been through a lot together. But at $150 now, I know it used to be $129, but those dang price increases went up. So now it's at $150. It's still an awesome value of a frog rod. It's a 7'3". It's listed as a mag heavy, so in Dobyns, it's more like a traditional regular heavy. In most other brands, it's a fast rod, just a brute of a rod at the price point. And then again, that lets us build this full frogging and punching combo for like $350, which means we're clawing back like whatever that is, $250 to spend in other places. That is going to come in handy here in a minute. So that's our frogging setup. That is 2 down, 3 to go. Let's move from our heaviest casting rod to our lightest casting rod as we build out our jerkbait and our topwater combo. Now, this one, if you know me, is also going to be pretty easy to guess what rod I'm going to pick here at least. It's, in my opinion, the best dollar for dollar jerkbait rod out there today. It's the Shimano X-Pride B 610 medium moderate fast action casting rod. This rod clocks in at $279, and it's worth every darn penny of that. I can throw a regular 110 size jerkbait. I can throw a deep 110. I can throw juniors. You name it. It's great for almost any type of jerkbait, and it's a little bit more moderate action than some of the other rods that I've used in the past, and that's really nice for me. One, because it helps you keep those fish pinned. Two, it actually lets you whip the slack of that line a little better so that you can effectively work that jerkbait. I like both of those attributes. It's helped me get a lot more bites and land a lot more jerkbait fish over the past couple years. But it also handles spooks and topwaters really well too. So it's a great all-around sort of versatile, lighter casting rod if you want to throw those topwaters, those jerkbaits, even small plastics. If you just want to like skip wacky rigs under docks or something, it's a really cool rod at $279. So that's going to be my pick for the rod here. And then my reel, we're going to go with the Shimano Corrado 70 MGL. This reel is perfect for palming and working on a light rod because it's got that smaller spool, it's more compact, but you're not sacrificing the internals. Now, the one thing that really does make me mad about this reel is that it's $249, while every other Corrado that also have MGL spools in them are like $199 or $209. Why is the smaller version of this reel the most expensive? I don't understand it. It bugs me, but this is the size that I want on this combo, so I'm going to have to pay for it. So that's your jerkbait and topwater combo. We're going to go with a 610 medium moderate fast Shimano X Pride B with a Corrado 70 MGL, and that's going to come in at $528 for the combo. So that still puts us under the $600 per combo budget that we would have to average. That's a pretty good middle of the road price there, but a perfect setup in my eyes for what you're going to be doing with this combo. Okay, on to number 4 here. Our number 4 combo is going to be our crank and stick. And with this, you're going to need a more moderate rod to effectively throw and use those mid to deep diving crankbaits on. And a bonus if you can get a rod that's versatile enough to handle some other popular moving baits, which is what we're going to do here with this setup. So on our list here so far, there have been some curveballs like the Zillion rod, the Zillion reel, the Tatula 150 reel. We've taken some chances there, but we've also gone back to some old favorites that you've heard me talk about over the years, and this rod that we're going to pick here is going to be one of those. For our crankbait rod, we're going to go with one of my all-time favorite rods, period, and it's the Dobyns Champion XP 736 CB Glass. This is a glass composite crankbait specific rod that I have thrown a ton of different baits on over the past probably 5-6 years. But for starters, it handles mid and deep diving crankbaits very, very well. So your DTs, your DRTs, your XDs, all those big build crankbaits that you need to get down super deep, this rod can do that. But when you're picking 5 rods, you also want rods that can wear a lot of hats, and that's this rod to a T. This rod is also a stellar chatterbait and bladed jig rod. I would say a 1/4 ounce chatterbaits and up, but 1/2 ounce seems to kind of be its sweet spot. But your regular mid to heavy chatterbaits, the 736 CB Glass is a ton of fun to throw because it's not as fast, again, as what I used to throw a lot of chatterbaits on, and it's helped me not jerk that chatterbait out of those fish's mouth when I go to set the hook, and in turn, again, land more fish. Same thing with spinnerbaits. It is money for big 3/8 and 1/2 ounce spinnerbaits. It's also great for small glide baits. So anything I would say under, 1.5 ounces or 2 ounces, that kind of size and under, you can get away with this as a nice glide bait rod as well. If you prefer this over something like the Fury Frog rod that we talked about earlier, it's kind of a dealer's choice there, whether you want a faster or a slower rod. Of the two, I would prefer to throw glide baits actually on the 736 CB Glass. So that's the rod, and it comes in at $269, right on budget. And then the reel that we're going to put on this, no surprise, we're going to pair it with a Shimano Corrado 200M. So not the 70, not the new 150, the 200, because it's going to have that extra capacity for my big moving baits. Like with a deep crankbait, long casts are the name of the game. You need to get that bait down to its desired running depth, and to do that, you need a lot of distance. You need to be able to crank that thing down if you're trying to get to 12, 15, 20 feet. You can't really do that on short casts. You need bomb casts, and bomb casts need line capacity. So that's what you're getting getting here. You're also going to be able to use this now for your big glide baits if you beef up to something like 20-pound fluoro because you have that bigger spool to handle it. So that's also nice. It's also got a bigger handle on it, so it's already got that torque to kind of power crank that you need. Now, the one thing I would make sure of for this setup in particular is I would get the 6-to-1 gear ratio. Now, I know that's a slow reel, and I know everybody nowadays wants to go faster and faster and faster, but for these types of baits, so especially deep cranks and mid cranks, but also even like your glides sometimes, you want a slower reel. You don't always need an 8-to-1 or picking up the 35 to 40 inches per turn. Sometimes you need that slower reel to really grind and have the torque and the power to handle these baits that have a lot of resistance under the water. Trust me, your arms and your wrists will thank you later. Now, this reel comes in at $199, so your total combo here for the Dobyns 736 CB Glass and the Shimano Corrado M are both going to be $468 total. So again, well below that $600 per combo budget, which means since we've been a little bit more conservative on a few of our last combos, we have the budget to splurge here on combo number 5. And our 5th combo is your all-around spinning combo. Now, since it's your only spinning combo in the bunch here, it has to do everything. You need strength, you need versatility, you need sensitivity, you need casting distance, but you also want quality and warranty, and you need it to just be the best spinning rod that you can find. And that, folks, is going to be, for us, the G Loomis GLX 852S jig and worm spinning rod. Now, I had this rod until I snapped it in a kayak crash in an accident. Not while I was like fishing it. It didn't snap on like a hook set or a cast or anything, just a collision on the water that couldn't be avoided in fast current. But as someone who has had both the G Loomis NRX Plus and the G Loomis GLX, the GLX is incredible for $100 cheaper than the NRX. So to squeak in our budget here, that's the choice we're going to make. We're going to save that $100 and we're going to go with the GLX. And we're going to pick it up in the 7'1" medium extra fast action. This rod is basically an NRX clone without the recoil guides on it and just regular sort of conventional guides, which I actually like better. I'm not really a big fan of the recoil guides. So I think at this point, if I had to buy a new combo, I'd probably buy a GLX over an NRX for that reason alone. Same reel seat, same handles. It's almost identical, just $100 cheaper. So that's our rod. It is the pinnacle of balance and weight reduction and sensitivity. That G Loomis GLX is a nasty, nasty rod, but it comes in at a $550 price point, which is why we made some of the choices that we did earlier. We got a little thrifty on our frog setup and our cranking setup and tried to stay at that sort of $199 price point for a lot of our reels versus going up into the 300s so that this was still attainable. So when you're getting a feather light, super sensitive, but still strong backbone rod, what reel do you put on it? For $250, I don't think you're going to find a better option than the good old Shimano Vanford A 2500. They redid them last year, so they're even better than they were before, and I haven't had the same sort of roller bearing issues that I had with my previous two Vanfords. They're stupid light at 6.2 ounces, smooth drag. It's just an incredible reel to pair with a high-end rod like the GLX. So for $550 for the GLX and $250 for the Vanford, that is an $800 combo total, making it by far our most expensive combo on the list, but it's also your only spinning setup, so I think maybe it should be. Okay, so let's tally this up here. Our first combo was the versatile workhorse casting combo of the Daiwa Zillion SV 8.5-to-1 reel at $399, and then the Daiwa Zillion multi-purpose 7.3 medium heavy fast rod also at $399. Our second combo here was our frogging and punching setup of the Daiwa Tatula 150 8.4-to-1 ratio reel priced at $199 with the Dobyns Fury 735C at $149. Our third setup was our jerkbait and our topwater combo, which was a Shimano Corrado MGL 70K. That was the 7.4-to-1 is what we ended up with on that, and that came in at $249. And then we put that on the Shimano X Pride B 610 medium moderate fast casting rod, which came in at $279. Our fourth combo here is our cranking setup. That is a Shimano Corrado 200M, the 6.2-to-1 gear ratio reel. That's going to cost us $199, and then we're putting that on the Dobyns Champion XP 736 CB glass. That's the heavy, fast crankbait specific model. That's going to be $269. And finally, our fanciest combo, our all-around spinning rod, is going to be that Shimano Vanford 2500 for $250. And we're going to put that on the G Loomis GLX 852S JWR. That is a 7'1" medium extra fast spinning rod for $550. So if you total all of those up, 5 rods and 5 reels, your total is $2,942. So $58 under our $3,000 budget for those rods and reels. $2,942 for an insanely nice 5-rod lineup. I think that's a pretty good build in my eyes. Now, here's where it gets really fun though. You guys know me, I've always preached time and time again of shopping around, finding the best deal, and I want to kind of bring to your attention how I do this with American Legacy Fishing. This is how I would go about buying this setup and not paying $2,942. So right off the bat, they're running that Dobyns sale right now for 25% off. So that Dobyns Fury 735C frog rod is no longer $149. If you buy it now at ALF, they're $111.75. That is a steal. Same thing with the Dobyns Champ XP 736 CB glass. That's the rod that we were going to use for cranking and chatterbaits and glide baits and all of that. We said that rod was $269. That's what it normally is. Right now it's on sale at ALF for $201.75. Killer rod for $200, no questions asked. So I would buy those right now if you're interested in them because you're going to save money. So there's like $105 in savings right off the bat before we do anything, just checking out like normal because of the sales that are going on at ALF. So our $2,942 total is now $2,837.50. Then I can get an extra 5% off my purchase for using code TackleTalk5. That then brings our total down from $2,837.50 down to $2,695.62. So another savings of $134.78. Poof, just for listening to Tackle Talk, just for typing in Tackle Talk 5. So we've saved $105, now we've saved $135, and then if you're an elite member over at American Legacy Fishing, you would get 10% back on this order. So that's another $269.56 back to spend at American Legacy Fishing. That's like getting one of these rods completely free. So in essence, instead of paying $2,942, which was our original purchase, now we're paying more, like $2,426.06. That is a savings of $515.94, over $500 off. That's how it's done, folks. That's how my little redneck thrifty butt over here saves money on fishing gear. It's no secret. I tell you guys at the top of every show, that's why I shop at ALF, being smart with how I shop. So tack that on to the long list of why I shop at American Legacy Fishing. Our $3,000 rod and reel arsenal just turned into a little over $2,400 by clicking a few buttons. That, and you're buying through a great family-owned shop that genuinely appreciates your business and it actually makes a difference for them. That's another reason why I love supporting them. Now, I should mention really quickly that if you go to ALF, you're probably going to notice that some of the things we talked about on today's episode are going to be on back order. The combination of waiting on supply on the ALF side and the demand of these products, because they're some of the most popular rods and reels in the industry. So a lot of this is going to be on back order right now. So if you order today through ALF, you're probably going to have a little bit of wait before these get to you. I just want to be upfront about that. That's obviously your choice. You can choose to kind of go the ALF route and save money and wait a little bit till stock comes back in for your order to be replenished by the distributors and the vendors and everybody once they get that gear to ALF. Or you can go look elsewhere and purchase right now if you need them quickly. But I just want to be upfront with you. I usually am one of those people that says, hey, I'll wait a little bit if it means I'm going to save a ton of money. But if you have a tournament coming up, if you need them right now, obviously make the choice that's right for you all. But there you go. A full dream 5-rod combo build on a strict $3,000 budget that you can get down to about $2,400 if you play your cards right. All right, folks, and finally here, it looks like we've got time for about one question here from the mailbag. So let's get into this question. The one we've picked for today is from Trevor, and he says, "Hey, Andrew, huge fan of the show. So I live in the Chillicothe area where it's more river fishing than lakes, although there are a few lake options. I'm interested in getting my first kayak, and I don't want to spend an arm and a leg on a kayak setup. I've been looking at the 8-foot and 10-foot Ozark Trail sit-on-top kayaks from Walmart, but wanted your opinion on which one to get and if the extra 2 feet in length would make much difference in the stability and comfort I want when I'm trying to fish the first few times I try hitting the lake and using the kayak before hitting the Scioto River, because I'm sure riding the river with current can add quite a challenge for a beginner kayaker. Thanks for your time, Trevor." Hey man, thanks for writing in. I appreciate it. This is a fun little topic here because this is something that I think a lot of people get confused about on what they're looking for when they want stability. And ironically, a longer kayak does not mean it's going to be more stable. So what you're looking for is overall width and then how it's shaped on the bottom and the sides of that kayak. Most kayaks have what we can probably call primary and secondary stability. Your primary stability is just that. It's how stable that kayak is when it's pretty much level on the water. It's not tipping really much at all. That really little give that it has. How much will it rock back and forth in that kind of flat position with very little movement? And that can have a lot to do with the shape of the underside of the kayak. Does it come with more of like a V shape under there? If it does, then it's probably going to have a little less primary stability, but it will most likely be faster and more maneuverable. Same with like a skinnier kayak in general. Skinny and long usually means fast more than it means stable. A wider kayak, on the other hand, typically means it's going to be more stable because you have more surface area that's touching that kayak under the water and you have more kayak underneath you to work with. But then your secondary stability is when you start to tip. How well does it stop you from tipping too far? Because any sort of tip is not a bad thing. It's a little harder to explain, but in some kayaks, it's really easy to feel. I think Crescent does a really good job with this. When you get past that primary stability and you start to lean, it sort of catches you at a certain point to keep the kayak from tipping any further. And that middle ground, that play area sort of between your primary and your secondary stability is there for a reason, because that's maneuverability right there. Being able to lean and sort of aid in turning and being agile in the kayak, that's nice because you want that little bit of play sometimes. They shouldn't all just be giant, flat, stationary pontoons of kayaks. You want some mobility in there, but there's also a fine line. Now, on the other side, if you look under the kayak and you've got more of like a tri-hull type look under there, it's probably going to be a lot more stable, and that's what you're seeing a lot of these bigger fishing kayaks go to right now. A flatter bottom, multiple sort of bulges down there from right to left to sort of stabilize that kayak and all of the gear and weight that we're putting in these things nowadays. But overall length very rarely has much to do with the overall stability. It's just that as you get a longer kayak, a lot of times your kayak gets wider and bigger in general. That's your stability. So the width of that gunnel helps a lot too. I would measure your kayak side to side more than I would measure it tip to tip if you're worried about stability. And like my Hobie was probably the skinniest kayak that I've ever had, and it was also the longest kayak that I'd ever owned. That thing was built for speed. Yes, it was decently stable, but nowhere near something like a Hobie Pro Angler or an Old Town or even my old Feel Free. It was a lot tippier than that, but it was longer and skinnier. So again, it was built for speed. It was built for maneuverability and cutting through, current and waves and stuff like that, more so than it was for how many, jumping jacks side to side can I do in this thing. So overall length isn't really going to be your telltale for stability. I would look more for overall width and then how the bottom of that kayak is designed. So hope that helps you out. All right, everybody, that is today's episode. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode today. If you did, do me a favor, leave us a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify if you can. If you're leaving one on Apple, if you can write something in that little space down there that they give you, that would be a tremendous help to us here on the show. We appreciate you guys. Also, a reminder, you can go to tackletalkpodcast.com/mailbag for your chance to submit your mailbag question to be heard on an upcoming episode. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all at Tackle Talk Podcast. And we'll see you right back here next Tuesday for another brand new episode of Tackle Talk.
Thank you for listening to the Tackle Talk Podcast. Tackle Talk is produced by Andrew Hayes. Copyright 2019. For more, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.